Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 37, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. You have it in there? It's the same as the time, 1937. Here's the Sanskrit. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha dhrita rata charano bhabyach chalagur harir eva hantum ibhangato tariyaha. Translation. Bhishma Dev speaking in the presence of Lord Krishna. Fulfilling my vow and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel and ran toward me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Purport. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishma Dev, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishma Dev therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied, and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana, and Bhishma Dev could understand that this was the trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself, otherwise his friend Arjuna would die. In the next day's fighting, Bhishma Dev fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble. Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishma Dev the very next moment. At that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee Bhishma by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from his chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhishma Dev in an angry mood as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great anger he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhishma Dev at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot, but because Bhishma Dev wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created this situation, making Arjuna's death appear imminent. He stood before Bhishma Dev to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the wheel. I'm reading this in conjunction with a commentary, ongoing verbal commentary I'm making on Sri Vishnu Sahasranama. I'm presently commenting in a series of lectures on the name Naikakarmakrt, which means that he doesn't do one work, which can be understood to mean that with every work, with every action that he performs, he fulfills various purposes. By becoming the Ratangapani, the one who held the part of the chariot in his hand, Krishna fulfilled various purposes. He demonstrated what a great devotee Bhishma was, that to fulfill Bhishma's promise, he was prepared to forgo his own promise. And he also showed what a great devotee Arjuna was. Actually, Krishna, by protecting Arjuna in this way, he broke one promise of his own, but he fulfilled another promise of his. Just before the battle, he told Arjuna, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. Arjuna, you declare it, that my devotee is never vanquished. So this is a promise made by Krishna, but he stopped playing with the cartoons. But he had it proclaimed through the mouth of Arjuna. So Krishna fulfilled his own promise. He showed this, that Arjuna must be protected. I will not allow him to be killed here by Bhishma. And he also showed, as he did many times, or at least several times during the battle of Kurukshetra, the higher principles of dharma. For a kshatriya to give his word, his promise, he must fulfill it. He will die rather than not fulfill his promise. But Krishna's promise that he won't take up any weapon, he just dropped it in a second and rushed towards Bhishma to attack it. So in this way he showed that above even though worldly dharma is so important, there's the higher dharma for Krishna to protect his devotee that is higher than the worldly dharma. Or even in ordinary worldly situation, if a kshatriya, he may have to choose. We may have to choose between breaking one rule or breaking another rule. So Krishna also demonstrated throughout the Kurukshetra war by telling Yudhishthira to tell a lie, by telling Arjuna to kill Karna when Karna was down from the chariot. That although the rules of worldly morality are there, the situation in this world is so complex that you can't always follow all of them properly. In other words, one has to understand this, as it's said in English, one has to know the spirit of the law more than the letter of the law. So these are some points that Krishna demonstrated by attacking Bhishma. He gave great pleasure to Bhishma in doing so, because Bhishma had that mood of wanting to fight with Krishna, as Prabhupada says in the purport, in a sporting manner. He longed to see Krishna's face with full concentration and anger, fighting to protect his devotee. The anger on Krishna's face as he attacked Bhishma, that was a manifestation of his intense love for Arjuna. Bhishma wanted to see that, but he couldn't see that unless he attacked Arjuna. So Krishna fulfilled that desire of Bhishma Dev. Now, in Rama Leela, it's very famous how Ram left for the forest. He fulfilled various purposes in doing so. He fulfilled dharma by fulfilling the order of his father. He exhibited the highest example of following dharma, and in this way set an example for the world. He was supposed to be crowned as the king, but then his father called him and said, no, instead you have to go to the exile to the forest. So he was immediately ready to follow. Even Lakshman, according to some versions, was ready to, our old father has become mad, let's just by force take the kingdom, forget him. But Rama said, no, we should follow the order, I must follow the order of my father. When he told me to accept the kingdom, I was ready to accept it. Now he told me I must leave the kingdom, I must also accept that. Then Dasharatha said, actually forget it. I told you that because I was impelled by Kaikeyi, But anyway, you just take the kingdom anyway. Forget Kaikeyi. But Rama said, no, we should, you gave your promise. I don't want you to break your promise to Kaikeyi. So in this way, he showed the strict adherence to dharma without any personal desire. In this way, he showed renunciation also. That one shouldn't be attached to any situation, but one should do what is right in all circumstances. Even with even by accepting great personal difficulty, one should do what is right. Of course, by doing this, he also set the stage for the whole story of the Ramayana, and it enabled him to have very intimate association with Sita. If he had remained as the king in Ayodhya, then most of his day would have gone in various state and social activities. But there was no such thing in the forest, so he could spend much time with Sita. Of course, the inhabitants of Ayodhya, they weren't very happy. But that also, they experienced the feelings of separation from Rama, which increased their love for him at every moment. He also created a situation by which the great love for him of Lakshman was demonstrated. That Lakshman, he didn't have to come, but he left Ayodhya, he left his wife, and served as a menial servant, Lord Rama. And also the great love of Bharat, that Bharat, even though he got the kingdom, but he didn't want to rule it for his own prestige. He did so taking the most humble position as a servant of Rama. By wandering in the forest, Lord Rama purified that land and gave his mercy even to the forest dwellers, the tribal people. So in this way, by one action, he performed many activities. Now, here's a quote from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada's commentary on Madhya Lila, chapter 5, text 77 and 78. Now this is concerning the story of Sakshi Gopal, in which the elderly, high-class Brahmana wanted to give his daughter in marriage to the younger, lower level of Brahmana, in which the relatives of the elderly Brahmana, they were very much opposed to this. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, as the super soul within the heart of all living entities, Krishna knows everyone's desire, everyone's request, and everyone's prayer. Although all these may be contradictory, the Lord has to create a situation in which everyone will be pleased. This is an instance of a marriage negotiation between an elderly Brahmana and a youthful one. The elderly Brahmana was certainly willing to give his daughter in charity to the young Brahmana, but his son and relatives became impediments to the transaction. The elderly Brahmana considered how to get out of this situation and still offer his daughter to the young Brahmana. His son, an atheist and a very cunning fellow, was thinking of how to stop the marriage. The father and son were thinking in a contradictory way, yet Krishna created a situation wherein they agreed. They both agreed that if the Gopal deity would come and serve as a witness, the daughter would be given to the young Brahmana. So the story is that when the elderly Brahmana and younger Brahmana were visiting Vrindavan, the elderly Brahmana promised his daughter to be given to the younger Brahmana in marriage. But when they reached back to their village, the relatives of the elderly Brahmana protested. No, cannot be. The younger Brahmana said, well, he promised. So the son of the elderly Brahmana said, was there any witness to the promise? And the younger Brahmana said, yes, the deity Gopal was the witness. So the elder Brahmana's son said, well, if you bring this deity here, then that will be the witness. So both sides agreed. the elderly Brahmana's son was an atheist, and he thought that deity's not going to come here. And the younger Brahmana thought, well, he's a witness, so he should come for the court case. He'll come. He was a great devotee. So in this way, both were satisfied, and Krishna actually came, the deity Gopal, and in this way he upheld the promise of his devotee, the elderly Brahmana. When the young Brahmana went back to Vrindavan, and he spoke to the deity and said that, well, now you have to come with me back to, he was living in South India. And the deity Gopal said to him, well, I never heard of a deity walking. And the young Brahmana said to him, well, if you can talk, you can walk. Pratima nahatumi sakshat Brajendra Nandan. He said, you're not a statue, you're directly Krishna. So in this way, Krishna was defeated by his logic. So he came, and again, he upheld the promise of his devotee, and he also gave his mercy to the people of South India by going there, and they worshipped him there. There are so many deities in Vrindavan, so he came down to the Vijayanagar kingdom. Later, Prataparudra Maharaj fought with Krishna Deva Rai. They are both Vaishnavas, but they fought each other. Prataparudra Maharaj defeated, and he took Gopal with him and established him in Puri. But later Gopal had some disagreement with Jagannath, and so he moved away, and he's presently being worshipped in Cuttack, which was the capital of Prataparudra. So Krishna, in his wonderful pastimes, fulfills many, many purposes, which are all beneficial for the world, and especially for his devotees. Here's another example. There are so many examples. This is from the 7th canto purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, when Prahlad's mother, Hiranyakashipu's wife, Kayadhu, was under the protection of Narada, she prayed for the protection of her son from the enemy. And Narada Muni gave assurance that Prahlad Maharaj would always be safe from the enemy's hands. Thus, when Hiranyakashipu was going to kill Prahlad Maharaj, the Lord saved Prahlad to fulfill his promise in Bhagavad Gita. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Well, wait a minute. Prahlad Maharaj came before Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Now, Bhagavad Gita is eternal. Yeah. So continuing the purport. And to prove true the words of Narada. And to prove true the words of Narada. Then, Srila Prabhupada writes, the Lord can fulfill many purposes through one action. So this statement, that is the very meaning of the name Naikakarmakrt. Continuing the purport, thus the killing of Hiranyakashipu and the saving of Prahlad were enacted simultaneously to prove the truthfulness of the Lord's devotee and the fidelity of the Lord himself to his own purpose. Similarly, in 10th canto purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Krishna can carry out many purposes with one act. Commenting on his delivering the 2 trees, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, he fulfilled Narada's promise that these 2 demigods would be delivered from the tree-like form by Krishna. And similarly, when he killed Hiranyakashipu, he fulfilled Narada's promise to Kayadhu that your son will always be protected, always be safe from the enemy's hands. Kayadhu could not have imagined that the enemy would be her own husband, his own father. So continuing the purport. Oh, another point, in killing Hiranyakashipu, he manifested from the pillar as the form of Narahari. So by doing so, he also upheld the words of Prahlad because Hiranyakashipu scoffingly had said to Prahlad, you say your God's everywhere. Is he in this pillar? Yes, he's in the pillar. And as a typical atheist, Hiranyakashipu said, this is just nonsense. And he wanted to empirically prove that Prahlad was wrong. Unfortunately for Hiranyakashipu, he only empirically proved that Prahlad was right. And by appearing as Narahari and killing Hiranyakashipu, he also fulfilled Brahma's promise to Hiranyakashipu. He protected the demigods by killing Hiranyakashipu, and simultaneously he fulfilled Brahma's promise that Hiranyakashipu had taken the boon that he would not be killed in the land or the sky or the water, but he was killed on the lap of Nrsimha, which is neither the land nor the sky nor the water. He asked for the boon that he would not be killed by any animal or any human or any god. So Nrsimha, he's not fully an animal because he's half human, and he's not fully a human because he's half animal. So he took the boon that he would not be killed inside any building or outside any building. So he's killed on the veranda, which means it's not inside and it's not outside. Neither in the day or the night. He was killed at the evening sandhya, the dusk time. So it's neither day nor night. So in this way, Krishna as Nrsimha fulfilled all the promises. He also, by appearing as Nrsimha, showed that you never know what he's going to do. He's unpredictable. Hiranyakashipu thought that by his taking all these boons, he was fully protected. But he couldn't imagine that the intelligence of Bhagavan goes beyond whatever he can imagine. Nrsimhadev, actually all the forms of the Lord, they prove that he is not formless. He's a person. But even people who have some idea of God as a person, they tend to think of him as either being someone very angry and throws everyone into hell, or just some very mild, calm kind of person. Sometimes the Christians in India, they criticize, you see in the Hindu religious music, it's all this nada swaram and this banging on the drums, all very loud, but we have very calm and peaceful hymns. So they think that, very nice. God, very nice, very nice. They don't imagine how angry God can be. So the idea that God cannot be angry was nullified by the enemy of Hiranyakashipu, Nrsimhadev. And he also demonstrated that it's really not a very good idea to become an enemy of Krishna. Whatever our power is, it's insignificant compared to his. Hiranyakashipu achieved power far more than anyone can imagine. He dominated the whole universe. But in a second he was vanquished by Nrsimhadev. So in this way he gives instruction to us that however powerful we may be, Krishna is much, much more powerful. So we shouldn't be proud of our tiny little power or ability that we have. We're completely dependent on his mercy. So continuing this, I'll read a little bit more from this purport. When he personally does something, it is only to satisfy his devotees. The Lord is known as Bhakta Vatsala because he very much favors his devoted servant. So, this name, Naikakarmakrt, that comes in a verse in Vishnu Sahasranama, in which one of the names in that verse is also Vatsala. So, by punishing Hiranyakashipu and protecting Prahlad, same thing as by protecting Bhishma, by attacking Bhishma and protecting Arjuna, he showed his, like a parent, parental affection toward both. As a parental affection toward Prahlad. But that, anyway, I'll discuss that after a few. Still Naikakarmakrt is going on. This Vishnu Sahasranama is a very basic part of the traditional culture of Srirangam and of Sri Vaishnavas. It's actually part of Gauriya Vaishnava culture also, although it's not much practiced nowadays. So I'm going on speaking on these names, and those lectures are coming out on the internet, and my lectures on the first 250 names are available in one DVD here. So Hare Krishna. I'll finish that, unless anyone has any question about this.
When Lord Rama went said, was he aware that these things are going to happen in future, that he will leave Sita only?
Yeah, you already translated that? Yeah. Okay, the answer is yes and no. He knows everything, but by his Leela Shakti, he also doesn't know. You understand? I don't understand. How can we understand? That's Bhagavan. Okay, anything else? What's the question?
She asked how many Naikakarmakrt instances are there?
Oh, unlimited. Everything Krishna does at every moment fulfills so many different purposes.
She wanted to know how many.
Oh, today? Well, then you think of this, huh?
You mentioned 4, you mentioned 5, she mentioned 4, with one that was.
Well, what did we speak about? We spoke about Bhishma and Arjuna, about Rama. You say, you can also. Prahlad. Yeah.
Damodar Leela.
Damodar Leela I spoke on more yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? Little bit I spoke, but I spoke more about that just yesterday, wasn't it? Yesterday. Yeah, just a little touch I gave.
Krishna took the chariot wheel. It can be weapon or it cannot be a weapon.
Yeah, that's possible understanding. Yeah, it's generally not considered a weapon. Yeah, anything could be a weapon used in anger. This is not designed as a weapon, but it could be used for smashing someone over the head. That was just a drama. I don't have any anger against Sri head. Because he happened to be sitting there, that's all. I'll just give a garland in case you're doubting that. I mean, I get angry with him sometimes, but not just now. So, Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj ki.
Actually, it wouldn't be a good idea to use this as a weapon because it's too expensive and it'll get broken. Sometimes, not much nowadays, but in the old days in the Western countries, when we used to go on Harinam Sankirtan, these demons would attack us. Drunken people, some low-class people would attack us physically. So our devotees discovered these cartels make very good weapons, actually. You need a longer string than this, but you can put it in someone's face, cut up their face, and they'll run away.